Today on The Young and the Restless, Claire rankles Audra, Victor calls Adam by the wrong name, and Nick thinks Sally's still in love with his brother. At Newman, Nicky introduces Victor to Claire. He welcomes her to the company and says his wife speaks very highly of her. Claire tells him she's honored to get the job and plans to give Nicky her all. She's excited to learn from the best. I couldn't have hoped for better. Nicky and Claire go to Newman Media, where Claire gushes that she once wrote a paper about Victor's acquisitions and now she just shook his hand. Nicky assures her she made a good impression. Audra knocks and walks in and updates Nicky on the struggle to acquire a podcast company who is holding out for too high a price. Nicky decides to ask Claire for her thoughts. Claire suggests they give them a way out by letting the fee stand but recouping the funds in another part of the deal by getting something else of value. That way, Nicky's happy and they will feel like they've won. Nicky says, very astute. Audra's not sure what else they have that they'd want. Nicky tells her to tie it to the advertising platform. Audra says, okay, and thanks Claire for her insight. Outside the door, Audra fumes. Nicky teases Claire that she's not sure she'd want to go up against her in a negotiation and compares her to a young Victoria. Nicky tells Claire she'd like her to call her Nicky. She's a demanding boss, but she tries to make her expectations known. She's tough but fair. Sometimes when she has to bark orders, but it's not personal. Claire assures her she has a thick skin. She grew up in a strict household and was taught to follow the rules. Nicky muses that her great-aunt really laid down the law. Nicky asks if she had anyone aside from her aunt, but Claire would rather focus on the future than the past. In Sally's suite, she tells Nick that it's time to bring in some clients to her new business. As she goes on, Nick paces the floor. She asks about designing the new offices of his company with Sharon. Nick answers her questions, but she realizes he's not really listening. Nick admits he can't stop thinking about something else. She guesses it's the kiss with Adam. He hasn't been the same since he found out. Nick's trying hard to forget about it and is trying hard not to be paranoid, but she told him she was torn up inside and then said something to try and make him feel better. He complains about the rapid shift in her feelings for him, which he perceives as trying to make him feel better. The timing can't be a coincidence. Sally thinks that her being open about her feelings is the important part. She admits she's tangled up and Adam got to her, but she only cares about them. Sally wants to think that she can handle anything that's thrown at her, and most of the time that's true, but you know how Adam is, he's relentless. Nick asks her, do you think Adam would have been able to push all of those buttons if there wasn't some part of you that wasn't still in love with him? Sally tells Nick she doesn't love Adam. That's in the past, as are his past relationships. She wants to focus on the future and his belief in her. She and Adam are friends and went through a horrible ordeal together. She feels affection for him and empathy. Nick says, losing Ava bonded you. Sally thinks he should understand that sharing that with one person doesn't discount how you feel about someone else. She wouldn't lie about falling in love with him and pleads with him to believe her. Adam greets Nate, who is with Victoria at Society, and goes over a list of things he's taken care of for him. Nate muses that he's impressed. Adam says, my sister's obviously not. Victoria snarks, bravo for doing your job. She's suspicious at him working so hard. It's a clear sign that you're up to something. Adam points out that this is a double bind for him. If he slacks off, he's an ingrate who thinks this is beneath him, and if he works hard, he's plotting. His dream is that one day she'll accept what he says to her at face value. Victoria doesn't see that happening anytime soon. Nate insists they're both giving him the benefit of the doubt for now. Adam feels a little faith would make this easier. It could be good for all of them if it works out. Victoria's unconvinced. Adam heads back to the office. Victoria hopes Nate's not falling for Adam's con. Nate insists he's as skeptical about Adam as she is, but he's not going to provoke him. Eventually, he'll reveal himself. Victoria can't start complimenting him. He'd see right through that. Nate reminds her they have to let him think they've bought his act. Victoria will have a more positive attitude, but it won't be easy. She points out it doesn't address the bigger issue, my father. Nate thought she'd let that go. Victoria is going along with what her father wants for now, because it was the only feasible choice. It's hard to wait this all out as she's not patient. Nate chuckles. I had no idea. Victoria complains about Victor wanting to whip them into shape. I've been leading this company. She's not hurt, she's insulted. Nate starts to warn her and she asks if there is anything he can agree with her on. Nate doesn't want to argue. They agreed to sit back. Victoria fumes about her father throwing her out of the CEO chair and Nick refusing to come back and support her. Nate feels her reaction is inappropriate, so she feels she's out there alone. Nate insists he supports her, but urges her to keep the peace. Can't you see that I am just trying to protect you? In Sally's suite, Nick wonders if it's possible she just wishes she were in love with him because it's safe. Sally insists her feelings for him are huge. Nick doesn't want her to feel trapped. If you need time, just take it. He hates that Adam is manipulating her. All his talk about being a better person is just that. Talk. Everything he's doing is affecting her. Sally thinks Nick is the person it's affecting. Nick declares, I can't go through this again. I don't want to. Sally asks, what are you saying? Nick can't be in a relationship where both sides aren't fully committed. I'm all in Sally, and you've got to be too. Sally insists she is all in. Nick argues that she's not. Every instinct he has tells her she's not. He's been fighting the feeling for a long time that Adam is the one she really wants to be with. There's a pull between the two of them that's always there. For a while it worked and they were happy, but then all hell broke loose when she lost Ava and he couldn't be there for her when she needed him most. But Adam was, Sally says, but I choose you. Nick thinks she's delaying the inevitable. I think that kiss tapped into some emotional truth for you. Sally protests, you're wrong. Nick says he's not wrong and she refuses to see it right now. Until she does, he can't be with her. With that, he walks out. At Society, Victoria informs Nate that she doesn't need protecting. Nate apologizes and says he's there for her, whatever she needs. Are we good? Victoria nods. Nate has to go back to work. She won't join him and says she'll see him later. At Newman Media, Audra tells Nikki that Claire's suggestion worked. Claire's sure it wasn't a tactic that Audra didn't already know. Nikki heads out for a meeting and Claire tells Audra, I hope you don't think I crossed a line. Audra assures her they're all a team there. So first day, how do you think it's going? Claire says it's her dream job, she just hopes she can make expectations. Audra thinks this will be a very exciting time for all of them. Claire asks if she can do anything for her. Audra has nothing. Claire goes to her desk. Once alone, Audra puts Claire Grace into the search line of her browser. Adam greets Victor in the main office. His father asks if he's comfortable in his new job. Adam says he's not used to being someone's assistant, but he's trying to anticipate Nate's every move. Victor admits he didn't think he'd pull it off. Adam muses that it's a lesson in how to treat his own assistant when he climbs his way back up the ladder. There's still time for me to fail and start lashing out again. Victor hopes he won't indulge in his slash and burn tactics again. I'd be very disappointed to know I wasted my time. Nate arrives and Victor asks if he needs something. Nate wants Adam to sit in on a conference call. As they're walking to the door, Victor calls out, Nicholas, do a good job. Assuming his father's making a dig, Adam scoffs, that's funny, but Victor doesn't know what he's talking about. In the hall, Adam says to Nate, well, that was weird. Nate wonders if it's just a case of a parent calling a son by his sibling's name. Adam says his father has called him a lot of things but never Nicholas. Adam's convinced it was a dig. Nate says, or a slip of the tongue. Nikki appears and asks, what was a slip of the tongue? Adam tells her that Victor just confused him with Nick. She looks concerned. At Society, Victoria flashes to telling her mother that she's concerned about her father and then telling Nick that Victor's behavior isn't normal. She's about to leave the restaurant when Nick walks in. She asks if he has a few minutes and wonders if he's spent any time with their dad since they last spoke. Nick says he hasn't. She was hoping he'd have noticed what she has, that he's off his game. He's not himself. Nick thinks she's just bitter. Victoria insists she isn't. She confesses that even she and Nate aren't seeing eye to eye right now. What their dad did hurt, but she's not just imagining that he's not the leader he used to be. Nick relents and asks what he can do. Victoria wants him to come back to Newman. Please, Nicholas, I need you. I don't trust Adam and I really am scared for our father. Would you please come home? Nick assures his sister that he's always in her corner, but it's going to have to be from outside Newman Towers. Victoria pleads with him to at least think about it and to spend some time with their dad. I'm genuinely worried about him. Nick agrees and they express their love before she leaves. In her suite, Sally cries and thinks about Nick dumping her. She picks up her phone and calls him. At Society, Nick sees that Sally is calling but doesn't pick up. Nikki enters Victor's office and asks if everything is all right. Adam told her that he called him by the wrong name. Victor says, "Yeah, I called him Nicholas. It was intentional." Nikki, perplexed, asks, "Why would you do such a thing?" Victor grins.